stream entry. For example, dana or tan, giving or alms, charity, has the meaning of it, or the purpose of it, is to decrease selfishness. But people are giving dana instead as kind of an exchange in order to buy heaven or buy paradise. So this is to practice dana foolishly, to turn dana into a superstition. Or take sila. The purpose of sila is to get free of selfishness. But there are people who keep sila in order to think that they're better than others, in order to judge others, or in order to brag or boast about themselves, which is to turn sila into superstition. It's to practice it for the wrong reasons. So even sila can be turned into silapata paramasa. Or samadhi, meditation, has the purpose of getting rid of or controlling selfishness. But there are people who practice samadhi in order to be somebody really special or to have magic powers or something. And so they turn samadhi into silapata paramasa. Or panya and vipassana have the sole purpose of cutting the roots of selfishness, of removing the cause, all the causes of selfishness. But then there are people who develop wisdom, who practice vipassana in order to be a sage or in order to be a teacher or something like this. And so even vipassana can become silapata paramasa without one knowing it. Thus, if we ask what is sasana, we can say sasana is the tool for getting rid of all forms and levels of selfishness. And nowadays the world is about to go to hell because of selfishness. The capitalists are selfish, the laborers are selfish, the owners are selfish, or the employers are selfish, the employees are selfish, the government is selfish, the congresses, the parliaments are selfish. The world is going to ruin because of selfishness. The UN, for example, is a meeting place where people argue about their own selfish interests. It's a place for arguing and competing and dividing up the pies. And so the UN is never really able to solve any of the world's problems because it ends up being just a big meeting place of selfishness. We ought to end the UN and put a UR in its place. Instead of the United Nations, we should have a united religion, which ought to be more successful in ending selfishness. Or if we can't get rid of the UN, we should at least have a UR to supervise the UN and make sure it behaves properly. All religions aim to end selfishness, but religions are on various levels to suit the different needs and abilities of people, or the different levels of understanding. Buddhism, or Puddhasat, aims to eliminate or to free us from the self, the soul, the atta, or atman, whatever we call it. And then selfishness goes away by itself, which is the easiest approach. It's a pretty easy way of going about it. This is how Buddhism ends selfishness. Other religions do it in other ways suitable for different people. Religions which really stress that there is a self or a soul, which emphasize this and make it a firm belief, it's very, very difficult for these religions to end selfishness. So all of this is an answer to the question, what is sasana? So in short, sasana is the way of getting out of dukkha. All animals, whether human or non-human, have sasana or require sasana. And so we should have sympathy and pity for the animals because they have their sasana to get out of dukkha. And we should not harm them or destroy them, but rather ought to have pity for them. There remains one more word, the word Buddha. Please endure a little longer so that we can finish all three in one sitting. The next word is Buddha. Our question then is, what is Buddha? This is a very important question for us. Do we have the real Buddha yet? Do we understand Buddha truly, correctly, or not? This is an important question for us, so please listen carefully and examine this question deeply. The Buddha himself said that one who sees the Dhamma sees me. Whoever sees me sees the Dhamma. Even if you're grabbing onto my robes, that doesn't mean you see me. So there are two Buddhas. There's the physical, bodily Buddha, and then there's some other Buddha. Elsewhere, he said, whoever sees the Dhamma sees paticca samuppada. Whoever sees paticca samuppada sees the Dhamma. Therefore, to see paticca samuppada, or dependent origination, is the same as seeing Dhamma, which is the same as seeing the Buddha. So to see the Buddha means one must see dependent origination. Paticca samuppada is the conditions or symptoms of the arising of dukkha, and then the symptoms or the conditions of the quenching of dukkha. That dukkha arises dependent on these conditions, and then dukkha quenches dependent on these conditions. This is what dependent origination is about, which is the natural law which we were talking about at the beginning. Thus, anything that shows or demonstrates dependent origination to us, that thing is the Buddha in this meaning. To see dependent origination is to see the Dhamma, is to see the Buddha. So the Buddha is whatever demonstrates or points out paticca samuppada to us. Prince Siddhartha is a historical person who was born in India in a certain place, to a certain family, had a certain personal history and life. This other Buddha is outside of history, is beyond history.